So hello everyone and welcome in part 11th of the Bear Act. In my earlier videos, I have already discussed from Article 1 to Article 65, clause by clause and also article by article. Okay, and in this part, we will discuss from Article 66 to Article number 70. If you like this initiative, let me know in comment section also. And I think if you are watching this video and you think it is productive one, then make sure to subscribe this channel. Okay, now I want to remind you three articles from the last lecture, and that article is 63, 64 and 65. Okay, now article 63 was about the there shall be a vice president for India or vice president of India. That means article 63 providing you vice president for the India, office of the vice president of India. Article 64 was about the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. That means council of state. You will not find the mention of Rajya Sabha. Instead you will find the mention of council of state, and for the Lok Sabha, council of the people. Okay, and article 65 was about that vice president will act as a president under certain circumstances that I have discussed earlier in my last videos. Okay, now you need to keep these articles in your mind while watching this video. Okay, now from today, as I have already told you that I keep adding original text of the constitution, and if you want to read it, you can read it word by word. Okay, and if you don't want to read it, I have provided explanation in a simplest possible way along with the text also. Okay, now article 66 is about election of the vice president of India, that how vice president of India will be elected. And this article says that vice president of India will be elected by an electoral college, and that electoral college consists of the members of the both houses of the parliament. That means Lok Sabha plus Raj Sabha. Okay, apart from this, you also should keep in your mind that in the electoral college of the vice president, both nominated as well as elected member participated. Okay, and there is no participation of state legislature member. Okay, state legislature member. Now, how will election be held? So election will use the system of the proportional representation, single transferable vote, and also by secret ballot. This was about article 66 clause 1, and 66 clause 2 about that vice presidents are not be a members of the either parliament or even state legislature as well. That simple means that vice presidents should not be belong from any houses, whether Lok Sabha, Raj Sabha or even state legislature. Okay, now suppose if a MLA, okay, or an MP want to contest an election for the office of the vice president of India, is they are eligible, or they eligible for the contesting of the election for vice president of India? Yes, they are eligible, because these office are not considered as a office of the prophet. But when he or she will own the vice presidential election, then at the moment when he or she will enters into office as a vice president, he immediately deemed to have vacated his seat in the house. Okay, whether MLA or MP, he or she have to vacate the seat in the house. Okay, now as you can see here, clause 3 is about eligibility for the contesting of the election as a vice president. Okay, so here vice president candidate should be a citizen of India. He must have completed the age of 35 years and should be qualified for election as a member of the Council of State, that means Raj Sabha. Okay, and for the president, it is Lok Sabha, and for the president, electoral college consists of Lok Sabha, Raj Sabha and state legislature and only elected member. Okay, now clause 4 is about that office of the prophet. Okay, now suppose if there is a person who want to contest election for the vice president. Okay, if there is a person who want to contest for the post of the vice president, now if he is serving under the state government or the central government or any authorities which are under the governments of India, these are offices, some offices that are considered in the office of the prophet, and they are ineligible to contest the election for the vice president or the president even. But if any person is a MLA or MP, okay, he or she can contest election, but when they enters the office as a vice president, they have to vacate the seat in their legislature or in their house. Okay, that is the simple explanation of article clause 4. Okay, for the purpose of this article, a person shall not be deemed to hold any office of profit by a region only that he is the president or vice president of the union or the governor. Even apart from MP, MLA, governor, president or sitting vice president, even they also can contest election for the post of the vice president, because these officers are not included in the office of profit. Okay, now I am going to explain each article from my notes that I have made it for you, that is in the simple possible way. So article 66 was about the election of the vice president. Its clause 1 describing the electoral college, that means electoral college consists of the members of the both houses of parliament, that means Lok Sabha plus Raj Sabha, and proportional representation system will be followed, single transferable vote, and the ballot should be secret. Okay, and the vice president will be elected by members of the Lok Sabha and Raj Sabha, both elected plus nominated. Okay, now the election is conducted through proportional representation system, single transferable vote, and secret ballot. Unlike the election of President of India, state MLA, that means the members of the state legislature do not participate in the election of Vice President. Clause 2 saying that Vice President shall not be member of the either House of Parliament. If there is a member who are contesting election for the Vice President, if they own, they simply have to vacate their seat in their house. Okay, that is simple, and then they can assume the office of the Vice President. Okay, now at a time he has to vacate his seat. Apart from this, that means vice president cannot be simultaneously as a vice president or the MP, MLA that I have discussed it. Okay, now if an MP or MLA becomes vice president, then their legislative seat becomes vacant when they enter the office. Clause 3 was about the eligibility. So the candidate who are contesting the election should be citizen of India, that means candidate must be an Indian citizen, minimum age 35 years, and apart from this you need to know that he should be qualified for the election as a member of the Council of State, that means Raj Sabha. Okay, so these are the qualifications that are mentioned under Article 66 clause 3. Okay, and 3 qualifications are mentioned, also including age. Clause 4, that means office of profit under the government of India, government of any state or local authority. And if you are serving in these endowments, or you can simply say that you are serving under state government or the central government, then you are not eligible for the contesting of election for the office of the Vice President of India. Okay, so a person is not considered to hold an office of profit mainly because he is a Vice President, that I have already discussed, that if a person is serving office of the President or the Vice President, Governor or Minister, they can contest election because these offices are not included in the office of profit. Okay, so for President, Lok Sabha qualifications should be, and for Vice President, Raj Sabha qualification are given. Now Article 67 is talking about the terms of the office of President, that how many terms a candidate as a Vice President can be elected. So there is no bar, right? A Vice President can be recontest or re-elected. Even President also can be re-elected as many times as possible. Okay, so but the Vice President will hold the office for the 5 years from the date on which he enters. Okay, there are certain provision in this article as well. Provision 1 talking about that how Vice President will resign. So Vice President will resign by submitting his resignation to the President of India. That means Vice President in the writing will present their resignation to the President of India. Okay, also Vice President can be removed. In the case of President, the word impeachment is used. Okay, in the case of President, the word impeachment is used. But as you can see here, in the process of the removal of Vice President, impeachment word does not mention in the Constitution. Okay, it mentions removal or the remove simply. But in the case of President, you will find the word that are mentioned as a impeachment. Okay, so one important thing, that the resolution for the removal of the Vice President should be moved in Rajya Sabha only, and Lok Sabha will agree upon. Okay, so at least 14 days notice must be given before moving such a resolution. Okay, that is also true in the case of the President also. Okay, so resolution should be moved only in the Rajya Sabha, not in the Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha will agree upon that. Now removal inquiry, so Rajya Sabha will pass the resolution, Lok Sabha agrees to it, and 14 days notice is compulsory. Okay, now there are some important points. As I have already told you, that the Constitution does not call this procedure as impeachment as it was in the case of the President. Okay, next provision is that Vice President will continue in the office even after expiry of his term until his successor enters. Okay, so can it extend beyond 5 years? Yes. On the exceptional cases, the terms of the Vice President of India can be extended beyond 5 years. But as we already know, that if vacancy arisen due to the resignation or illness or any other reason, okay, then any person can act as a vice president, okay, or the deputy chairman of the Rajya Sabha can act as a vice president, because vice president is an ex officio chairman of the Council of State, okay. Now, within 6 months, election should be held. That is the case when vacancy will arise due to the resignation or some other reason. But if there is an end of the terms, now before ending the terms, election should be held. It is also true in the case of president as well. Okay. Now, suppose there is a new election held, a new candidate emerged victorious for the office of the vice president. Okay. Now, until that person assumes office as a vice president, the old president will not vacate his seat or vacate his office. They will continue to remain in the office until successor enters. Okay. So there is no gap between outgoing president and the new president coming. That is the simple meaning. So Article 67 providing terms for the office of the vice president, that is 5 years. He can submit his resignation or her resignation to the President of India. He can be removed by a resolution passed by the Rajya Sabha. 14 days notice will be given and it should be agreed by the Lok Sabha. Okay. And also talking about continuity until new successor assumes his or her office. That is the simple basis of the Article 67. Now Article 68. Okay. So time of holding election to fill vacancy in the office of president and the term of office of president elected to fill casual vacancy. So there are two type of vacancy. When term is over or when vice president resign, okay, or they are unable to perform his duty or her duty function, right. So there may be two type of vacancy. Okay. Now an election to fill vacancy caused by expiration of the terms of office, vice president shall be completed before the expiration of the term, that I have already discussed. Now suppose if the vice president normal 5-year term is ending, right, so the election for the new president must be completed before the old end. Okay. This is one part that how vacancy could be arisen. Clause 2, sorry. Election to fill a vacancy caused by vice president due to death, resignation, removal or any reason shall be held as soon as possible after the vacancy occur. Now, in the case of the president, it was 6 months. Within 6 months, if the vacancy arisen due to these reasons, within 6 months, new president will be elected. Okay, but here you can see as soon as possible is mentioned. Okay, there is no fixed timeline mentioned here, right? But in the case of president, right, 6 months, within 6 months, a new president will be elected. That is the difference that you need to know, because UPSC trap the question about this. Okay, they can make a trap type question. Now, the person elected will hold office for a full term of 5 years from the date he enters and subject to Article 67, that is simple meaning. Then let's suppose a election was held for the office of the vice president and a person was chosen as a vice president. After 2 years, he resigned or removed. Okay, so the new president will assume the office for the 5 years from the term, not for the remaining 3 years. That is the meaning. Okay, so they will remain in office for the full 5 years, not remaining 3 years. Okay, so if the vice president's office become vacant unexpectedly, then election as soon as possible. A new vice president gets a fresh 5-year term. So here I have provided important difference for you, that in the case of president, if there is a casual vacancy, so successor gets only the remainder of the terms, because as you can see here that if there is a casual vacancy, right, so vice president will succeed. Okay. Now, but in the case of vice president, if there is a casual vacancy, successor gets a full 5-year terms. Okay, I think it should be corrected. Okay, so let me check it. Article 67. Just wait. Just give me few seconds. Once I will check, then it will be confirmed one. Okay. Yes. Okay, it is not given here, right? Okay, it is not given here. But I think if the vacancy of the president occurs due to the casual, okay, so successor gets only the remainder of the term. This is not true, because if there is a fresh election held, the new president will elect. Okay, and the new president will hold the office for the full 5-year terms. Okay, full 5-year terms. So this is wrong. And vice president casual vacancy, then also if new vice president will be elected, they will assume the office or they will remain in the office for full out 5-year terms. Okay. Article 69. Article 69 mention about the oath or affirmation by the vice president. As you know, Schedule 3rd of the Indian Constitution mention about oath and affirmation. Okay, but you will not find the mention for the president and vice president. Okay, why? Because it is mentioned in the Constitution itself under articles. Okay, not in the schedule. That is the difference. Okay, so every vice president must, before entering his office, make and subscribe an oath or affirmation before the president or the person were appointed by the president. So president can appoint even any person to make sure that vice president will take oath in the front of that person. Okay, but in the case of the president, CJI, or in the absence of CJI, senior most judge of the Supreme Court, will you can say that, or you can say that before that person, oath or the affirmation will be read, or oath or affirmation they will take. That is the simple meaning. Okay, so if a person appointed by president for this purpose, the vice president promises to bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India, faithfully discharge the duties of the office. Okay, so before becoming vice president, a person takes an oath to respect the Constitution, faithfully perform the duties of the vice president. So president oath basically before the Chief Justice of India or the senior most available Supreme Court judge. But for the vice president oath, president or any person who is appointed by the president, before him or her, the vice president will take oath. Okay, this is the distinction between president and vice president. Last article for today, article number 70, discharge of president function in other contingencies. Okay, so parliament may make such provision as it think fit for the discharge of the function of the president in any contingency not provided in this chapter. That means the constitution already provides for the situation such as president's vacancy, president's absence, or president's inability to perform the function. Okay, but let's suppose if an unforeseen situation arises which is not covered by this provision, then it is up to parliament, and parliament will make arrangement for carrying out the president function. If let's suppose there is a case except all these, okay, then it is the power lies with the parliament. Now article 70 is about that gives authority to the parliament, that parliament can provide for an unforeseen situation relating to president function that are not mentioned in the constitution. Let us take a quick revision. Article 66 about election of the vice president, article 67 talking about terms of the vice president, article 68 election to fill the vice president's vacancy, article 69 oath of vice president, and article 70 president function in other contingency. It is up to parliament. Okay, president and vice president, president election, elected MP and even elected MLA. Vice President Electoral College consists of both members of the House and Parliament. President qualification qualified for the Lok Sabha, and Vice President qualification qualified for the Rajya Sabha. President resignation to the Vice President, Vice President resignation to the President. President oath, Chief Justice of India or senior most judge available of the Supreme Court, and Vice President oath by President or the person appointed by the President. And President's casual vacancy, successor get remainder terms, and this is wrong. And vice president casual vacancy, successor get full 5-year terms. Okay, so these are from the my side's 11th lecture, and people are liking, students are liking this initiative, but they are not subscribing. Like the video or even share, but don't worry, and I even don't mind, right? So if you like this initiative, let me know in comment section. If you want any separate kind of video, or if you are facing any kind of problem in explanation, then also I welcome your feedback as well. Okay.